The Puppet Master, a mastermind. A mission. A world of deceit. Parwa's Table of Contents Chapter 1, The Stranger Chapter 2, The Perfect Partner Chapter 3, Cracks in the Facade Chapter 4, The Web Titans Chapter 5, The Hunt Chapter 6, The Final Move Chapter 7, A Web Beyond Grasp Chapter 8, Seduction and Secrets Chapter 9, The Broker's Shadow Chapter 10, Evelyn's Betrayal Chapter 11, The Broker's Escape Chapter 12, Anna's Resolve Chapter 13, Threats of Deception Chapter 14, The Rotterdam Raid Chapter 15, Decoding the Ledger Chapter 16, The Price of Betrayal Chapter 17, A Pattern of Shadows Chapter 18, The Paris Gambit Chapter 19, Beneath the Glass Dome Chapter 20, The Chase Chapter 21, The Unraveling Chapter 22, A Deal with the Devil Chapter 23, The Fallout Chapter 24, The Web Fractures Chapter 25, The Strike Chapter 26, The Final Move Chapter 27, The Silent War Chapter 28, A Final Gambit Chapter 29, The Heart of the Web Chapter 30, A Shattered Victory Chapter 1, The Stranger. Every masterpiece starts with a single brushstroke. The Grand Hall of Ashbourne's historic gallery exuded old-world charm and contemporary elegance. The vaulted ceilings, adorned with intricate frescoes, seemed to stretch infinitely, their grandeur emphasized by the cascading light of the crystal chandeliers. Anna Wallace stood near the bar, an island of calm in a sea of opulence, her emerald gown clinging to her frame like a second skin. She clutched a glass of champagne, its bubbles rising with a steady rhythm that belied the chaos of her thoughts. This was her event, a culmination of months of meticulous planning, but instead of reveling in her success, she felt hollow, detached. Ms. Wallace. The voice was deep and smooth, carrying an air of authority that demanded attention. Anna turned sharply, her heart skipping a beat as her eyes met his. He stood just a few feet away, a commanding presence among the crowd. Tall, with sharp cheekbones and piercing blue eyes, the man exuded a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "You have me at a disadvantage," Anna replied, her tone measured as she masked her initial surprise. Nicholas Grayson. He extended a hand, his lips curving into a faint smile. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." Anna hesitated before placing her hand in his. His grip was firm but not overbearing, his touch cool against her skin. "Looking forward? That's quite the introduction for someone I don't know." Nicholas chuckled softly, his gaze never wavering. "Forgive my forwardness. Your reputation precedes you. The Wallace Gallery is nothing short of remarkable. I've followed your career for some time now." Her brows furrowed slightly as she withdrew her hand. "Followed my career? I wasn't aware I had an audience beyond Ashbourne." "You underestimate your influence, Ms. Wallace," Nicholas said, his voice tinged with amusement. "Your gallery has become a beacon for collectors and connoisseurs alike. The way you curate art, it's not just a business. It's a statement. And I admire that." Anna's lips twitched into a polite smile, though a flicker of unease prickled at the back of her mind. There was something about his words, too polished, too rehearsed, that made her question his sincerity. "Flattery is a fine art in itself, Mr. Grayson," she said, taking a sip of her champagne. Nicholas's smile deepened, his eyes glinting with something she couldn't quite place. "Flattery isn't my intention, Miss Wallace. I speak only the truth." "Truth," Anna repeated, her tone light but edged with skepticism. "An elusive concept, wouldn't you agree?" "For most, perhaps," Nicholas said, tilting his head slightly. "But not for you. You have an eye for authenticity, for beauty that transcends the superficial. It's rare, and it's why I'm here tonight." Anna raised a brow. "You're here because of my eye for beauty?" In a manner of speaking, Nicholas replied smoothly. "I believe in potential. Your gallery has plenty of it. With the right partnerships, it could become a global powerhouse, a name that resonates beyond Ashbourne." She studied him carefully, searching for cracks in his polished exterior. "And I suppose you're offering to be that partnership?" "Not offering, Ms. Wallace," Nicholas said, his voice lowering slightly, almost conspiratorial. Proposing a collaboration that would benefit us both. Anna's gaze flicked over him, her mind racing. He was confident, almost unnervingly so, but there was no denying the allure of his words. Still, something about him felt too perfect. "I appreciate your interest, Mr. Grayson," she said carefully. "But I don't make decisions lightly." Nicholas inclined his head, his expression unreadable. "I wouldn't expect anything less." He raised his glass in a silent toast, his eyes never leaving hers. "To potential, Ms. Wallace. And to what lies ahead." Anna clinked her glass against his, her lips curving into a faint smile. But as she watched him walk away, disappearing into the crowd like a shadow, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just shifted in a way she couldn't yet comprehend. Chapter 2: The Perfect Partner. Trust is the most dangerous illusion of all. Nicholas Grayson fit seamlessly into Anna's world, though his presence altered it in ways she hadn't anticipated. He was a man of contradictions, refined yet bold, charming yet elusive, and his ability to navigate high society left Anna both impressed and unsettled. Within weeks, he became more than just her confidant. Nicholas was her lover, her advisor, and eventually, her business partner. It wasn't a formal arrangement, there were no contracts or signed agreements, but his influence over the gallery was undeniable. At first, his involvement seemed to bring nothing but good fortune. Nicholas had a knack for making things happen, as if he could succeed into existence. Clients who had once been lukewarm about investing in Anna's gallery were suddenly eager to buy her most expensive pieces. Invitations to exclusive art fairs and exhibitions abroad began flooding her inbox. "Your reputation is growing," Nicholas said one evening as they shared dinner in her townhouse. The dining room, filled with modern sculptures and abstract paintings, reflected Anna's impeccable taste. "I suppose it's growing," Anna replied, cutting into her salmon. "But I can't help wondering, how much of this is my reputation, and how much of it is yours?" Nicholas smiled, setting his wine glass down. "It's both, Anna. That's the beauty of partnership. We bring out the best in each other." His words were flattering, but they didn't quell the flicker of unease in her chest. There was something about Nicholas, his confidence, his control, that felt too perfect, too calculated. It wasn't just his uncanny ability to charm clients and brokers. It was the way he always seemed to anticipate her needs before she voiced them, the way he deflected personal questions with humor or vague anecdotes. One night, as they sat on the terrace overlooking the Ashbourne skyline, Anna decided to probe deeper. "You're very good at making people believe in you," she said, her tone light but probing. Nicholas raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. "And what do you believe, Anna?" She hesitated, caught off guard by the question. "I believe you're one of the most intriguing people I've ever met," she said carefully. "And yet," Nicholas said, leaning closer, "you're wondering if you can trust me." Anna's breath caught, the directness of his statement unnerving her. "Should I wonder?" His gaze held hers, unflinching. "Trust is earned, not given. But let me be clear, Anna, you are the only person I've ever trusted completely." The weight of his words, combined with the intensity of his stare, silenced any lingering doubts. For the moment, Anna allowed herself to believe him. Chapter 3: Cracks in the Facade. The truth hides in plain sight. The first crack in Nicholas's carefully constructed facade appeared subtly, like a hairline fracture in glass. It was Harold, her accountant, who first voiced concerns. "Anna," he said one afternoon, placing a folder on her desk. "There are some irregularities in the gallery's financial records." Anna frowned, setting her coffee aside. "Irregularities? What kind of irregularities?" Harold hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "There are transfers, large ones, being routed through offshore accounts. They're under shell companies I've never seen before." A chill ran down Anna's spine. "That's not possible. I would have authorized any major transfers." That's what I thought, Harold said, adjusting his glasses. But these transactions are linked to an account created under Nicholas Grayson's name. Anna stared at him, her heart pounding. The air seemed to grow heavier, pressing down on her. "Leave the files with me," she said finally, her voice tight. That evening, she confronted Nicholas. He was in her kitchen, pouring wine, when she walked in with the folder in hand. "What's this?" she asked, dropping it on the counter. Nicholas glanced at the documents, his expression unreadable. "Where did you get these?" Harold flagged them. "Care to explain why my gallery's money is being funneled into offshore accounts under your name?" For a moment, Nicholas said nothing. Then he laughed, the sound low and almost mocking. "Oh, Anna," he said, setting down the wine bottle. "You're smarter than this. Do you really think you'd have achieved half of what you have without me?" The words hit her like a slap. "Excuse me?" Nicholas stepped closer, his demeanor calm but predatory. "I've built this gallery just as much as you have." "Those funds?" "Investments. Necessary for the deals I've been negotiating to expand your empire." "Without telling me?" Anna shot back, her voice rising. Nicholas's expression darkened. "Because you would have questioned every decision. Sometimes, Anna, you must trust the person who has your best interests at heart." The audacity of his words left her momentarily speechless. She wanted to scream, to throw him out, but she couldn't deny the truth. Everything he'd done, as manipulative as it seemed, had worked. The gallery was thriving. "I don't know if I can trust you," she said finally, her voice trembling. Nicholas reached for her hand, his touch firm yet gentle. "You don't have to trust me, Anna. Just trust the results." Chapter 4: The Web Titan's illusions thrive in the shadows. Anna's days became a balancing act of feigned normalcy and quiet investigation. On the surface, the gallery thrived as Nicholas continued to leverage his extensive network of connections. Exhibitions were sold out before they even opened, and her name was spoken in circles she once thought unattainable. But beneath the surface, Anna felt like a trapped animal. She couldn't ignore the nagging voice that urged her to uncover the truth about Nicholas. The financial irregularities were just the beginning. Late one evening, after Nicholas had fallen asleep on the couch with a book in hand, Anna crept into his study. She rarely ventured into his personal space, but tonight, her resolve was stronger than her guilt. Nicholas's study was as meticulously curated as the man himself. The dark mahogany desk was free of clutter, the bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes arranged in perfect symmetry. The only indication that it was lived in was his laptop, sitting open on the desk. Anna hesitated before sitting down and opening it. Her fingers trembled as she navigated to his email account. She knew his password, he'd entered it in front of her once without realizing she'd memorized it. The inbox was a treasure trove of correspondence with names Anna didn't recognize. One email in particular caught her attention. It was from a sender named Broker at shadowy.org, and the subject line read, "Final phase, prepare assets." Her heart pounded as she opened the email. "Nicholas, the Ashbourne assets have been secured. Ensure all loose ends are tied before finalizing. The Wallace Gallery is key to the next phase, do not jeopardize its value. We expect results within the quarter." The broker Anna's blood ran cold. The language was clinical, detached, as if her life's work were nothing more than a pawn in some elaborate scheme. "Enjoying yourself?" The sound of Nicholas's voice behind her made her jump. She spun around, her pulse racing, to find him leaning casually against the doorframe, his arms crossed and a knowing smirk on his face. "You scared me," she said, her voice trembling despite her attempt to appear composed. Nicholas raised an eyebrow. "I can see that. Though I'm more curious about why you're snooping through my emails." Anna swallowed hard, scrambling for an explanation. I was looking for something about the exhibition in Paris. I thought it might be important." Important enough to sneak into my study in the middle of the night?" he asked, his tone deceptively calm. The air between them was electric, charged with tension. Anna's mind raced as she searched for a way to diffuse the situation. "Nicholas, I just don't." His voice was sharp now, cutting through her excuses like a blade. He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "If there's one thing I can't tolerate, Anna, it's dishonesty." The irony of his statement was almost laughable, but Anna didn't dare react. "I'm sorry," she murmured, lowering her gaze. Nicholas studied her for a long moment before sighing and running a hand through his hair. "You're under a lot of stress. I get it. But you need to trust me, Anna. Everything I'm doing is for us." "For us," she repeated softly, the words hollow in her mouth. "Exactly." He cupped her face, his touch almost tender. "We're building something incredible here. Don't let doubt ruin it." Anna nodded, forcing herself to meet his gaze. But as she watched him leave the room, her resolve hardened. Nicholas Grayson might have her cornered, but she wasn't going to let him destroy her without a fight. Chapter 5. The hunt to catch a predator, you must step into their world. Anna's first instinct was to go to the police, but she knew better. A man like Nicholas wouldn't leave a trail that simple. She needed someone who could think like him, someone who understood his world. Detective Evelyn Carter was that someone. Evelyn wasn't what Anna had expected. The detective was sharp-eyed and unflinching, with a no-nonsense demeanor that bordered on intimidating. Her reputation for taking down con artists and financial predators had earned her the nickname the Hawk within law enforcement circles. When Anna arrived at the precinct, clutching a folder of the evidence she'd gathered, Evelyn greeted her with a raised eyebrow. "Ms. Wallace, is it? You've got my attention." Anna explained everything, the financial discrepancies, the offshore accounts, the cryptic email from the broker. As she spoke, Evelyn's expression darkened. "You're not the first woman he's done this to," the detective said when Anna finished. "Nicholas Grayson has a long history of using charm and manipulation to get what he wants. The problem is, he's always one step ahead. Every time we get close, he vanishes." Anna's stomach sank. "So, you're saying he's untouchable?" Evelyn's lips curled into a grim smile. "Nobody's untouchable. We just have to be smarter than him." Together, they began to devise a plan. Evelyn would initiate an investigation, quietly gathering evidence while Anna played her part. She would remain close to Nicholas, feeding him just enough trust to keep him unaware of their efforts. "Are you sure you're up for this?" Evelyn asked as they wrapped up their meeting. Anna hesitated, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. "I don't have a choice," she said finally. "If I don't stop him, he'll destroy everything I've built." Chapter 6. The final move. Baiting a spider in its own web is a dangerous game. The gallery shimmered with subdued elegance that evening, its walls adorned with some of the rarest pieces in Anna's collection. The event, a private auction for Ashbourne's wealthiest, was Nicholas's brainchild, pitched as an opportunity to solidify the gallery's reputation among the international elite. To the guests, the evening seemed seamless as glamorous even. Champagne flowed freely, laughter echoed against the marble floors, and deals were whispered between collectors and brokers. But beneath the surface, the event was a carefully orchestrated trap. Anna stood near the entrance, clutching a glass of champagne she hadn't touched. Every detail of the night had been meticulously planned between her and Detective Evelyn Carter. From the security personnel positioned discreetly throughout the room to the tracker hidden in the clasp of Nicholas's custom-made cufflinks, they had thought of everything. Still, Anna's heart pounded as she watched Nicholas work the room, his charm weaving its spell on the unsuspecting guests. He was magnetic as always, slipping from conversation to conversation with the ease of someone who knew they were the smartest person in the room. "You're sure he doesn't suspect anything?" Evelyn murmured, appearing beside her. Anna shook her head. "If he did, he wouldn't be here." Evelyn's gaze followed Nicholas as he exchanged pleasantries with a prominent art dealer. Remember, the goal isn't just to catch him, it's to dismantle the network he's part of. We need him alive and talking. Anna nodded, her stomach twisting at the thought. If tonight went wrong, Nicholas wouldn't just walk away, he'd destroy her completely. The auction began shortly after, and the air in the gallery shifted. Guests took their seats, and the auctioneer stepped onto the stage. The first piece, a 19th-century oil painting, set the tone for the evening, with bids climbing into the millions within minutes. Nicholas sat beside Anna, his hand resting lightly on her arm as he whispered in her ear. "You've outdone yourself tonight," he said, his tone warm but laced with something darker. Anna forced a smile. "I couldn't have done it without you." His grip on her arm tightened slightly, just enough to make her uneasy. "Don't forget that," he said softly before turning his attention back to the auction. As the evening progressed, Anna played her role perfectly, smiling and engaging with guests while her mind raced. Evelyn had assured her that the tracker on Nicholas's cufflink would lead them to his accomplices, the elusive network that called themselves the Broker's Circle. But Nicholas wasn't one to make mistakes, and as the final lot of the evening, a rare sculpture, was announced, Anna felt a surge of doubt. What if he had anticipated their plan? The auction concluded with thunderous applause, and Nicholas rose to his feet, flashing his signature smile. "Another triumph," he said, offering Anna his hand. She took it, her fingers trembling slightly. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the applause. As the guests began to disperse, Nicholas excused himself to make a phone call. Anna watched him disappear into the gallery's private offices, her pulse quickening. Evelyn appeared moments later, her expression tense. "Is he moving?" Anna nodded. "He's in the back. Now's your chance." Evelyn signaled to her team, and within seconds, plainclothes officers began to converge on the gallery. Anna stayed behind, her heart pounding as she waited for the inevitable confrontation. Minutes later, she heard the commotion. Raised voices echoed through the gallery, followed by the sharp crack of breaking glass. Then silence. Evelyn emerged from the offices, her expression grim. "We've got him," she said. Relief flooded Anna's chest, but it was short-lived. Evelyn's next words chilled her to the bone. "But it's worse than we thought. He wasn't working alone." Chapter 7, A Web Beyond Grasp. A single thread can unravel an empire. Nicholas's arrest should have been the end of the nightmare, but it was only the beginning. Evelyn's team spent days combing through the evidence they had seized, laptops, phones, and encrypted files that hinted at a network far more intricate than they had anticipated. Nicholas wasn't just a conman. He was part of an international syndicate specializing in art fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. Among the files was a folder labeled Ashbourne that contained detailed information about Anna, her gallery, and her clients. But what disturbed her most were the emails from the broker. The broker, Evelyn explained, is the mastermind behind the entire operation. They operate in the shadows, using people like Nicholas to do their dirty work. And they don't take kindly to loose ends. Anna's stomach churned as she read one of the emails aloud. "Nicholas, do not fail. The Wallace Gallery is key to securing our foothold in the UK market. Should complications arise, eliminate them." Evelyn placed a reassuring hand on Anna's shoulder. "We'll protect you," she said. "But you need to understand, this is bigger than Nicholas. His arrest has likely put a target on your back." Anna swallowed hard, the weight of Evelyn's words sinking in. Her gallery, her life, it had all been a pawn in someone else's game. As the days passed, Anna began receiving anonymous threats. Emails, phone calls, even a package containing a forged painting with the words "You're next" scrawled on the back. The message was clear: the broker wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. Chapter 8, Seduction and Secrets. Trust is a game only the bold dare to play. The anonymous threats weighed heavily on Anna, each one a reminder that her battle with Nicholas and the broker was far from over. She rarely slept, her nights spent sifting through the gallery's records and the troves of files Evelyn had shared with her. Every corner of her life felt tainted by Nicholas's deception, yet she refused to crumble. It was during one of those sleepless nights that Marc Bennett entered her life. Marc was a private investigator hired by one of Nicholas's previous victims, a widow who had lost her entire inheritance to his schemes. He showed up at the gallery unannounced, his tall frame and rugged features an immediate contrast to the polished sophistication of the space. "Ms. Wallace," he said, stepping into her office with an air of quiet confidence. Anna looked up from her desk, startled. "Yes? Can I help you?" Marc handed her a business card. "Marc Bennett. I've been investigating Nicholas Grayson for the better part of a year. I think we can help each other." Anna studied him warily, her eyes narrowing. "How do I know you're not another one of his pawns?" Marc smirked, crossing his arms. "If I were, would I have walked in here unarmed and alone? I'm here because I believe Nicholas isn't the end of this. He's just a piece of a much larger puzzle." His words struck a chord, echoing Evelyn's warning about the broker. "What do you want?" Anna asked, her tone guarded. Marc sat across from her, his expression softening. "I want to stop people like Nicholas. And to do that, I need your help. You're closer to him than anyone else has ever been." Anna hesitated, torn between her instinct to trust no one and the glimmer of hope Marc's presence brought. "What's in it for you?" "Closure," Marc said simply. "And maybe a little justice." Over the following weeks, Marc became a steady presence in Anna's life. He was relentless in his pursuit of the truth, combing through files with an attention to detail that rivaled her own. Together, they pieced together fragments of the network Nicholas had been part of, uncovering names, shell companies, and stolen artifacts that stretched across continents. Despite her initial reservations, Anna found herself drawn to Marc. His determination mirrored her own, and his quiet strength was a balm to her frayed nerves. He was nothing like Nicholas, rough around the edges, unpolished, but undeniably genuine. One evening, as they worked late in her office, Anna caught herself watching him. The way his brow furrowed in concentration, the way his hands moved across the keyboard with practiced precision, it was a stark contrast to the calculated charm she had fallen for before. "You're staring," Marc said without looking up. Anna flushed, quickly averting her gaze. "I was just thinking." "About," he prompted, glancing at her. "About how I let someone like Nicholas into my life," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Marc leaned back in his chair, his eyes softening. "You didn't let him in, Anna. He forced his way in, like he always does. People like Nicholas prey on kindness and trust. That's not your fault." Anna looked down at her hands, her throat tightening. "It feels like my fault." "It's not," Marc said firmly. He reached across the desk, his hand brushing hers. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for." The touch was fleeting, but it left an impression. For the first time in weeks, Anna felt a flicker of something she thought she'd lost hope. Chapter 9. The broker's shadow. The mastermind always remains 2 steps ahead. Far from Ashbourne, in a sleek penthouse overlooking the Zurich skyline, the broker sipped a glass of wine and read through the latest reports from their operatives. Nicholas's arrest had been an inconvenience, but nothing more. Men like Nicholas were pawns, useful, expendable, and replaceable. The true power of the operation lay in its anonymity, its ability to adapt and evolve. An aide entered the room, carrying a dossier. "The latest updates," they said, placing it on the glass table before retreating silently. The broker opened the folder, their eyes scanning the contents with practiced efficiency. Photographs of Anna Wallace filled the pages, along with transcripts of her conversations with Marc Bennett and Detective Evelyn Carter. "She's proving to be more resourceful than anticipated," the broker mused aloud. "What should we do about her?" the aide asked. A slow smile spread across the broker's lips. "Watch her. Let her think she's making progress. The more entangled she becomes, the easier it will be to break her. The aide hesitated. And Bennett? The broker's smile faded. He's a liability. Deal with him. Chapter 10, Evelyn's Betrayal. The strongest bonds can shatter under pressure. Detective Evelyn Carter sat in her car, gripping the encrypted phone in her hand. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, calculated, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside her. You know what's at stake, the voice said. Keep her distracted. Or you'll lose everything. Evelyn closed her eyes, her jaw tightening. She had told herself this was temporary, that cooperating with the broker was the only way to protect her family. But each day, the line between compromise and complicity blurred further. Meanwhile, Anna and Marc began to notice troubling inconsistencies in Evelyn's behavior. Leads she had promised to pursue were suddenly deemed irrelevant. Surveillance footage went missing, only to reappear days later, but heavily edited. One night, while reviewing a file together, Marc noticed something strange. Look at this, he said, pointing to a timestamp on a surveillance video. That footage was supposedly lost. How did it end up here? Anna frowned. Evelyn said it had been corrupted. Marc's expression darkened. She's lying. Anna's stomach churned as realization dawned. You think she's working with the broker? I think she's hiding something, Marc said grimly. And if we don't figure out what it is, we're walking into a trap. Chapter 11. The broker's escape. A well-laid trap can still catch the wrong prey. The air was tense in the surveillance van parked a block from the gallery's second location. Inside, Evelyn's team monitored a sting operation meticulously designed to lure the broker. The plan was ambitious, almost reckless, but it was their best shot at capturing the elusive mastermind. Anna and Marc sat in the van, watching the screens as undercover officers milled about the warehouse posing as buyers. The room beyond the cameras was staged as an underground art auction, a tempting bait for the broker's network. I don't like this, Marc said, leaning close to Evelyn. His tone was low, urgent. It's too clean. If I were the broker, I'd smell a trap a mile away. Evelyn didn't look at him. Her gaze stayed fixed on the monitors, her jaw clenched. We've taken every precaution. Have you? Marc's voice hardened. Because it feels like we're walking into their trap, not the other way around. Anna sat in silence, her nails digging into her palms. Her instincts screamed that something was off. Evelyn's increasingly erratic behavior had been gnawing at her for weeks, but now the doubts were suffocating. She exchanged a glance with Marc, and his wary expression confirmed her fears. Inside the warehouse, the undercover officers played their roles perfectly, mingling with the fake bidders. At precisely 8:30 p.m., the room's attention shifted as a figure entered, a man in a gray suit carrying a leather briefcase. He walked with purpose, his every movement exuding confidence. That's not the broker, Marc muttered, narrowing his eyes. That's a proxy. Evelyn's head snapped toward him. What are you talking about? Marc pointed to the screen. They sent someone to test the waters. The broker wouldn't risk showing up personally. This is a distraction. Evelyn opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, the van's comms crackled to life. Movement on the east side, an officer's voice reported. We've got a vehicle pulling up, black SUV, tinted windows. Marc leaned closer to the monitor, his eyes narrowing. That's more like it. Check the license plates. The room buzzed with tension as Evelyn issued orders. Team 2, close in on the SUV. Don't let anyone leave the perimeter. But as the officers moved to intercept, the situation unraveled. The man in the gray suit opened his briefcase, revealing a sleek tablet connected to several devices. Within seconds, the warehouse's lights flickered, and the monitors in the van went dark. What the hell? Anna exclaimed, her heart pounding. They're jamming us, Marc said, his voice tight. Evelyn, get your people out of there. Now. But Evelyn hesitated, her expression clouded with something Anna couldn't quite place. Before she could act, the comms crackled again, this time with frantic shouting. Explosives! Fall back! The line went dead, and an instant later, a deafening explosion shook the van. The warehouse erupted in flames, the shockwave shattering nearby windows. Anna screamed, clutching Marc's arm as the van rocked violently. Everyone out! Evelyn barked, throwing open the van's doors. Chaos reigned as officers scrambled to regroup. The warehouse was engulfed in fire, the blaze casting an eerie glow against the night sky. Anna stumbled out of the van, coughing as smoke filled the air. Marc grabbed her arm, pulling her to safety. We need to move. This isn't over. But Anna's gaze was fixed on Evelyn, who stood frozen, her face pale. For the first time, Anna saw cracks in the detective's unshakable facade. She didn't trust her anymore, couldn't. And now, it was clear that Evelyn's choices had led them straight into a trap. Chapter 12, Anna's resolve. Fear is the crucible in which strength is forged. The aftermath of the explosion left Anna shaken but resolute. The gallery's second location was destroyed, the sting operation a catastrophic failure. Worse, the broker remained a ghost, slipping through their grasp once again. Back at her townhouse, Anna paced the living room, her mind racing. Marc sat on the couch, nursing a shallow cut on his forehead. His usually calm demeanor was replaced with frustration. We're running out of time, he said, his voice low. The longer the broker stays in the shadows, the harder they'll be to catch. Anna stopped pacing and turned to him. Then we don't wait for them to make the next move. We make it for them. Marc frowned. How? We don't even know who they are. But we know their network, Anna said, her voice gaining strength. Nicholas wasn't the mastermind, but he was connected. There are threads we haven't pulled yet, accounts, contacts, patterns. If we follow them, we might be able to predict their next move. Marc studied her, his skepticism softening. You're serious? I've spent my entire life building something out of nothing, Anna said, her eyes blazing. I won't let them take that from me. Not without a fight. Marc nodded slowly, a flicker of admiration crossing his face. All right. Let's do it. But we'll need help. Not Evelyn, Anna said firmly. She's compromised. Marc hesitated but didn't argue. Agreed. I know someone, a former intelligence analyst. If anyone can untangle this web, it's her. Anna exhaled, her resolve hardening. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. They would take the fight to the broker, no matter the cost. Chapter 13, Threads of Deception. A tangled web reveals its secrets thread by thread. 3 days after the explosion, Anna and Marc sat in a nondescript cafe in London, their faces illuminated by the glow of a laptop screen. Across from them sat Natalie Price, the former intelligence analyst Marc had promised. Natalie was sharp-eyed and quick-tongued, her short auburn hair tucked behind one ear as she tapped furiously at the keyboard. Despite her youthful appearance, there was an edge to her that hinted at years of experience in the shadows. You weren't kidding about the mess this guy left behind, Natalie said, her voice tinged with admiration as she scrolled through the files Anna had gathered. Shell companies, encrypted accounts, offshore havens. Whoever this broker is, they're meticulous. That's one way to describe them, Anna said dryly, sipping her now cold coffee. Can you find anything we've missed? Natalie smirked. Oh, I'll do more than that. Give me a day, and I'll have a thread we can pull. True to her word, Natalie delivered. By the next evening, she had pieced together a trail leading to a shipping company in Rotterdam, one of the broker's many fronts for moving stolen artifacts and counterfeit art. This company's been flagged for suspicious activity 3 times in the past year, Natalie explained, pointing to a map on her screen. Customs seized a shipment 6 months ago, but nothing ever came of it. My guess? Someone paid off the right people to make the problem disappear. Marc leaned closer, his brow furrowed. And you're sure this ties back to the broker? Natalie nodded. 100%. Look at the transaction logs. She pulled up a series of documents highlighting payments routed through one of Nicholas's shell companies. Anna's stomach twisted as she scanned the screen. So, this is how they do it, she murmured. They use legitimate businesses as covers. Exactly, Natalie said. If we can intercept one of these shipments, we might find something that leads us to the broker. Marc frowned. It's a gamble. If we go after one shipment and it's clean, we'll tip them off without gaining anything. Then we choose carefully, Anna said, her voice steady. What's their next move? Natalie pulled up a calendar of scheduled shipments. There's a container leaving Rotterdam tomorrow night. Destination, Hong Kong. If I were a betting woman, I'd say that's our target. Marc glanced at Anna. You sure about this? Anna met his gaze, her expression resolute. I didn't come this far to stop now. Chapter 14. The Rotterdam raid. Even the most intricate web can be unraveled. The Rotterdam docks were a labyrinth of shipping containers stacked like building blocks under the glow of harsh industrial lights. The air was thick with the scent of salt and diesel as Anna, Marc, and Natalie waited in the shadows, their breath fogging in the chilly night. Nearby, a team of local law enforcement officers stood ready to move on Natalie's signal. The operation was risky, but they had no other choice. This is it, Natalie whispered, handing Marc a tablet displaying the container's tracking information. Container 27B. Third row from the east. Marc nodded, his jaw tight. Stay close, he said to Anna, his hand brushing hers briefly before he moved ahead. They navigated the rows of containers cautiously, their footsteps muffled against the concrete. As they approached their target, the sound of voices drifted toward them, two men standing guard near the container. Anna's heart pounded as Marc signaled to the officers, who moved swiftly to apprehend the guards. The men were subdued without incident, and within moments, the container was opened. What they found inside left Anna breathless. Stacks of artwork, paintings, sculptures, and artifacts were carefully packed in crates, each one labeled with false documentation. Among them was a ledger, handwritten and encrypted with codes that Natalie quickly photographed. This is it, Natalie said, her voice trembling with excitement. This ledger, it's a roadmap. Names, dates, transactions. If we crack this, we'll have enough to dismantle the entire operation. Anna felt a surge of hope as she stared at the ledger. For the first time, they had tangible evidence linking the broker to their crimes. But the moment was short-lived. A sharp crack echoed through the docks, and Anna froze as the sound of gunfire erupted. Ambush! Marc shouted, pulling her behind a stack of crates as bullets ricocheted off the metal containers. Anna's pulse raced as she crouched low, her hands shaking. She could hear the shouts of officers engaging with the attackers, but the chaos made it impossible to tell who was winning. We need to get out of here, Marc yelled, his eyes scanning for an escape route. Natalie appeared beside them, clutching the tablet to her chest. I've got the files, she said breathlessly. We can't lose this evidence. Marc nodded. Follow me. The three of them darted through the maze of containers, the sound of gunfire growing fainter as they put distance between themselves and the fight. By the time they reached the edge of the docks, Anna's lungs burned, and her legs felt like lead. But when she looked at Marc and Natalie, she saw the same determination reflected in their eyes. They had survived the ambush, but the war was far from over. Chapter 15, Decoding the Ledger's Secrets Are the Currency of Power. Back in Natalie's safe house in London, the air was thick with tension and exhaustion. The small flat was cluttered with monitors, tangled cords, and stacks of documents. Marc sat at the kitchen table with a cup of untouched coffee, his sharp eyes darting between the windows and the front door, scanning for any sign they'd been followed. Anna, however, couldn't sit still. She paced the length of the room, her mind racing as Natalie worked tirelessly on decrypting the ledger they'd recovered from the Rotterdam raid. How much longer? Anna asked, her voice taut with impatience. Natalie didn't look up, her fingers flying across the keyboard. It's a cipher, a complex one. Whoever encoded this was either a genius or paranoid. Probably both. I need time. We don't have time, Marc interjected, his tone grim. Whoever ambushed us at the docks isn't going to sit back and wait for us to make the next move. Anna stopped pacing and turned to him. You think the broker knows we have the ledger? Marc met her gaze, his expression unreadable. They know we were there. It's only a matter of time before they realize what we took. The weight of his words settled heavily over Anna. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath her. But then she glanced at Natalie, hunched over her computer, and a flicker of hope steadied her. We're not running anymore, Anna said firmly. This is our chance to fight back. To expose everything they've done. Marc's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then we do it smart. We keep moving, stay unpredictable. Before Anna could respond, Natalie let out a triumphant laugh. Got it. Anna and Marc rushed to her side, peering at the screen as rows of decrypted text filled the monitor. The ledger was a meticulous record of the broker's operations, detailing everything from art smuggling routes to payments made to corrupt officials. But what caught Anna's attention was a single name that appeared repeatedly throughout the document, Evelyn Carter. Anna's blood ran cold. Evelyn's in this? Natalie nodded, her expression grave. Not just in it, she's pivotal. Payments to her go back years. She's been working with the broker for a long time. Marc cursed under his breath, slamming his fist on the table. She's been feeding us false leads this entire time. That's why Nicholas always stayed one step ahead. Anna sank into a chair, her hands trembling. She had trusted Evelyn, leaned on her for guidance and support. And all along, the detective had been playing her. We have to expose her, Anna said, her voice shaking but resolute. If we can bring her down, we can dismantle the broker's network. Natalie hesitated. Exposing Evelyn is one thing, but this ledger implicates dozens of people. Politicians, CEOs, law enforcement, it's a house of cards. Take one piece out, and the rest will topple. Good, Marc said bluntly. They deserve it. Anna looked at the screen again, her resolve hardening. How do we start? Chapter 16, The Price of Betrayal. Loyalty has a cost. The morning was grey and unforgiving as Anna sat in a dim cafe on the outskirts of London. Marc had insisted on the remote location, wary of surveillance. Across from her sat Evelyn Carter, looking as composed as ever despite the storm Anna knew was coming. You've been avoiding me, Evelyn said, her tone light but edged with suspicion. Anna forced a tight smile. I've been busy. Evelyn sipped her coffee, her sharp eyes scanning Anna's face. Busy with what? You haven't updated me since Rotterdam. The mention of the raid made Anna's stomach churn, but she held her ground. It's complicated, she said vaguely. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, her expression hardening. Anna, if you're hiding something from me, don't, Anna snapped, her voice low but fierce. Don't act like you're the victim here. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Anna pulled a printed copy of the ledger from her bag and slid it across the table. Evelyn froze as she looked at it, her face betraying a flicker of shock before she quickly masked it. Care to explain this? Anna asked, her voice cold. Evelyn didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the document, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. Finally, she sighed and leaned forward. You don't understand, she said quietly. Then help me understand, Anna shot back. Evelyn hesitated, her gaze darting to the other patrons in the cafe. Not here. It's not safe. Anna Anna's heart pounded as she followed Evelyn's gaze. Was this another trap? She glanced at Marc, who was seated a few tables away, pretending to read a newspaper. His presence reassured her, but the tension in her chest refused to ease. Fine, Anna said, standing abruptly. Let's go somewhere safe. But if you try anything, I won't, Evelyn said, rising slowly. I just want to explain. Evelyn led Anna and Marc to a desolate stretch of parkland outside the city, the kind of place where the only witnesses were the trees and the occasional bird. Marc's hand hovered near the concealed pistol at his side, his wary gaze never leaving Evelyn as they walked. Here, Evelyn said finally, stopping near an old bench. She turned to face them, her expression grim. I assume you've gone through the ledger. Anna crossed her arms. We have. How long have you been working for the broker? Evelyn sighed, running a hand through her hair. Longer than I care to admit. Then start explaining, Marc growled. Evelyn's jaw tightened. It wasn't supposed to be like this. When I first got involved, I didn't even know who the broker was. They approached me years ago, offering resources to help with cases, money, informants, information I couldn't get anywhere else. At first, it felt like I was making a difference, bringing down people who deserved it. And then? Anna pressed, her voice cold. And then the favors started, Evelyn admitted, her voice laced with bitterness. Little things at first, overlooking certain cases, misplacing evidence. By the time I realized what I'd gotten myself into, it was too late. They had leverage on me, and every move I made only tightened their grip. So, you just kept doing their bidding? Marc snapped. How many people suffered because of you? Evelyn flinched, but she didn't deny it. I'm not proud of what I've done. But I swear to you, I've been trying to find a way out. I've been gathering evidence against them, waiting for the right moment to act. Anna's laugh was hollow. You expect us to believe that? Evelyn's gaze hardened. Believe what you want. But if you want to take down the broker, you're going to need me. Marc stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. Give me one reason why we shouldn't turn you in right now. Because I know how they think, Evelyn said, meeting his glare without flinching. I know their network, their methods. You have the ledger, but you don't know how to use it. I do. Anna hesitated, the weight of Evelyn's words sinking in. She didn't trust her, couldn't trust her, but there was no denying that Evelyn's knowledge could be invaluable. You'll have to prove yourself, Anna said finally. Evelyn nodded. I expected as much. There's something in the ledger you might not have noticed yet, a pattern in the shipments. I can help you figure it out. Marc looked like he wanted to argue, but Anna cut him off with a sharp glance. We'll give you one chance, Evelyn. But if you betray us again, you won't have to worry about that, Evelyn said, her voice steady. I want to see them fall as much as you do. Chapter 17, A Pattern of Shadows. Every code has a key. Back at the safe house, the tension was palpable as Evelyn joined Natalie at the computer. Marc stayed near the door, arms crossed, his expression dark as he kept a watchful eye on the former detective. Evelyn scrolled through the decrypted ledger, her eyes scanning the rows of data. Here, she said, pointing to a series of entries. Do you see this? These shipments are all linked to the same account, but they're spaced exactly 3 months apart. It's a rotation, one that coincides with major art fairs. Natalie frowned, leaning closer. You're saying the broker is using the fairs to cover their operations? Evelyn nodded. It's the perfect front. High-value transactions, minimal scrutiny, and plenty of legitimate business to mask the illicit ones. Anna leaned over the table, her brow furrowing. What's their next move? Evelyn pulled up a calendar. There's an art fair in Paris next week. If I had to guess, that's where they'll be. Marc stepped forward. And you're sure about this? As sure as I can be, Evelyn said. But if we're going to do this, we need to act fast. The fair will be heavily secured, and the broker isn't going to show up without a plan. Anna's heart raced as the pieces fell into place. Paris would be their chance to finally confront the broker, but it wouldn't come without risks. Then we plan, Anna said, her voice firm. And this time, we don't let them slip through our fingers. Chapter 18, The Paris Gambit. The closer you get to the spider, the more dangerous the web becomes. The grandeur of the Paris International Art Fair was breathtaking. Held in the historic Grand Palais, the event attracted some of the wealthiest collectors and dealers in the world. Beneath its glass-domed roof, priceless works of art were displayed with meticulous care, each piece a testament to human creativity and greed. Anna, Marc, and Evelyn arrived separately, each playing their part in the carefully crafted plan. Anna was disguised as a high-profile buyer, her sleek black dress and diamond necklace giving her the air of effortless wealth. Marc posed as her security detail, his sharp suit concealing the firearm strapped to his side. Evelyn blended into the crowd as an attendee, her practiced composure masking the turmoil beneath. The goal was simple: identify the broker and gather enough evidence to bring them down. But nothing about the operation felt simple. Anna wandered the exhibition halls, her gaze scanning the crowd for anything, or anyone, out of place. Her earpiece crackled as Marc's voice came through. "East Wing," he said. "There's a group of suits near the modern art section. One of them fits the profile." Anna adjusted her course, her heart pounding as she approached the East Wing. From a distance, she spotted the group Marc had mentioned. Among them was a woman dressed in a tailored gray suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. "That's her," Evelyn's voice whispered through the calms. The broker. Anna's breath caught. This was it, the person who had orchestrated everything, the mastermind who had destroyed lives without a second thought. Marc's voice was steady. "What's the play?" Anna squared her shoulders, her resolve hardening. "We follow her. And when the moment's right, we strike." Chapter 19, Beneath the glass dome. In the heart of the web, danger lurks in every shadow. The Grand Palais hummed with quiet sophistication, the murmurs of affluent attendees mingling with the soft strains of a string quartet. Anna moved carefully through the East Wing, her sharp eyes fixed on the woman Evelyn had identified as the broker. She was strikingly unremarkable, precisely what Anna expected from someone so adept at staying in the shadows. Her gray suit blended seamlessly with the neutral tones of the exhibition space, but there was something about her, an aura of control, of power, that made Anna's pulse quicken. "She's talking to someone," Marc's voice crackled through Anna's earpiece. Anna shifted her position to get a clearer view. A tall man in a navy suit stood with the broker, his body language deferential but tense. They spoke in hushed tones, their expressions giving nothing away. "Can we get audio?" Anna whispered, pretending to admire a nearby sculpture. "Working on it," Natalie replied from the safe house. Her voice was calm but focused. "There's a parabolic mic hidden near the exhibit. Give me a few seconds." Anna's fingers tightened around the clutch she carried, her nerves on edge as she waited. Seconds felt like hours, but then Natalie's voice came through again. "Got it. Patching the audio now." The conversation crackled to life in Anna's earpiece. "Shipment is secure," the man in the navy suit was saying. "But there's been chatter about Rotterdam. The ambush didn't go unnoticed." The broker nodded, her expression calm. "Of course it didn't. The important thing is that we minimized the damage. The operation continues as planned." "And the ledger?" the man asked. For the first time, the broker's composure wavered, her lips pressing into a thin line. "It's being handled. Whoever took it won't have the means to decrypt it. But if they do, we'll make sure they never use it." Anna's heart raced. They knew about the ledger, but they didn't know who had it, yet. Marc's voice broke through her thoughts. "She's on edge. That's good. We can use it." Anna exhaled slowly, steadying herself. "What's the plan?" We can't take her here, there are too many people. No, Marc agreed. But we can follow her when she leaves. Natalie, can you track her? Already on it, Natalie replied. She's got a driver waiting outside in a black Mercedes. GPS is active. Anna's gaze flicked back to the broker, who was now scanning the room as if sensing she was being watched. Anna turned quickly, pretending to examine a nearby painting. She's getting suspicious, Evelyn's voice warned. I see it, Anna murmured. We need to move carefully. Chapter 20. The chase. The hunter becomes the hunted. The Grand Palais was a blur of movement as the broker made her exit. Anna, Marc, and Evelyn followed at a discreet distance, blending into the stream of attendees leaving the event. Outside, the crisp Parisian night air was heavy with tension. The black Mercedes was waiting at the curb, its engine idling. The broker stepped inside, the man in the navy suit following close behind. Tracker is active, Natalie confirmed. They're heading south. Marc hailed a nearby car, and the three of them climbed in. Follow that Mercedes, he instructed the driver, slipping him a stack of euros. The chase through the Paris streets was both methodical and nerve-wracking. The Mercedes moved with deliberate speed, weaving through traffic as if testing for a tail. Marc's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the car ahead. She's onto us, he muttered. Stay close, but don't get too aggressive, Natalie advised over the comms. We can't lose her. The Mercedes took a sharp turn down a narrower street, and Marc's car followed. The glow of the Eiffel Tower loomed in the distance, its lights a stark contrast to the shadowy tension of the pursuit. Where is she going? Anna asked, her voice tight. Natalie's voice was calm but focused. There's a private airstrip on the outskirts of the city. If I had to guess, that's her destination. If she gets on a plane, we'll lose her. Anna's stomach churned. They couldn't let the broker escape, not when they were so close. We need to intercept her, Marc said, his tone decisive. Before she reaches the airstrip. As the Mercedes approached an intersection, Marc made a split-second decision. Driver, block the car. The driver swerved, cutting off the Mercedes and bringing both vehicles to an abrupt stop. Tires screeched, and angry horns blared as traffic ground to a halt. Marc was out of the car in an instant, his weapon drawn. Evelyn followed, moving with practiced precision as she covered his flank. Anna hesitated for a split second before stepping out herself, her heart hammering in her chest. The driver of the Mercedes emerged, raising his hands in surrender. But the broker and the man in the navy suit remained inside, their silhouettes visible through the tinted windows. Out of the car. Marc barked, his voice firm. The passenger door opened slowly, and the man in the navy suit stepped out, his hands raised. But the broker didn't move. Last chance, Marc warned, his gun trained on the vehicle. Finally, the rear door opened, and the broker stepped out. Her gray suit was immaculate, her expression calm despite the chaos surrounding her. You've been busy, she said, her voice cool as her gaze swept over Anna, Marc, and Evelyn. Anna stepped forward, her hands trembling but her voice steady. It's over. The broker smirked. Over? My dear, this is only the beginning. Chapter 21, The Unraveling. A web tightens before it breaks. The standoff outside the Mercedes was electric, the tension crackling in the cool Parisian night. The broker stood calm and collected, her eyes scanning her captors with the precision of a chess master studying the board. Anna clenched her fists, her voice rising above the chaos. This ends now. You've ruined lives, destroyed families, why? For profit? Power? The broker tilted her head, a faint smile curving her lips. And you think shouting at me in the middle of a Paris street will change any of that? Marc stepped closer, his gun still trained on her. We're not here to change you. We're here to stop you. Her smile didn't falter. Stop me? You have no idea how this works, do you? arrest me, and someone else will take my place. Cut one thread, and another is spun. This operation doesn't depend on me, it thrives because of people like you. Desperate. Predictable. Anna's heart pounded, but she forced herself to remain calm. We've got the ledger. It's over. At that, the broker's smile faded, her expression hardening. The ledger. Every name. Every transaction. It's all there, Marc said, his voice firm. You're done. But instead of fear, something else flickered in the broker's eyes, its amusement. Do you really think that's the only ledger? She asked, her tone dripping with condescension. You've barely scratched the surface. And while you're celebrating your little victory, my people are already moving the pieces into place. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice sharp. You're bluffing. Am I? The broker turned her gaze to Evelyn, a cold smile curling her lips. You, of all people, should know how this works. How easily loyalty can be bought. How fragile alliances are. Evelyn flinched, but she didn't respond. Anna's resolve hardened. She couldn't let the broker manipulate them, not now. Enough, she said firmly. Get her in the car. We're taking her in. Marc nodded, stepping forward to restrain the broker. But as he reached for her arm, she moved. In one swift motion, she slipped a small device from her pocket, a black box with a blinking red light. Step back, she warned, her voice low but commanding. Marc froze, his gun still trained on her. What is that? A dead man's switch, she said simply. Take me in, and I trigger it. Everything in the network, every name, every account, will vanish. Poof. Gone forever. Anna's blood ran cold. You're bluffing. The broker raised an eyebrow. You want to test that theory? Chapter 22, A deal with the devil. The line between enemy and ally is razor thin. Back at the safe house, the atmosphere was suffocating. The broker sat calmly in a chair, her hands cuffed in front of her, while Anna, Marc, Evelyn, and Natalie huddled in the adjacent room. We can't let her walk, Marc said, his voice a low growl. She's playing us. She's holding all the cards, Evelyn countered, her expression grim. If that switch does what she says it does, we'll lose everything. Then we call her bluff, Marc snapped. Can we risk that? Anna asked quietly, her mind racing. What if she's telling the truth? What if the network disappears and all those people go free? The room fell silent, the weight of the decision pressing down on them. Finally, Natalie spoke. There might be a way to work around it, she said hesitantly. If I can access her device, I might be able to disable the switch before it activates. Marc frowned. That's a big if. It's all we've got, Anna said. She turned to Evelyn. Can you get her to talk? Distract her while Natalie works? Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. I'll do my best. Evelyn returned to the room where the broker waited, her expression carefully neutral. Comfortable? She asked dryly. The broker smirked. As much as one can be in handcuffs. Evelyn sat across from her, leaning forward. You're smart. You know this can only end one way. Why not make it easier on yourself? And miss the fun? The broker replied, her tone light. While they spoke, Natalie slipped into the room under the guise of bringing coffee. She moved quickly, her nimble fingers working to access the device the broker had placed on the table. But the broker was sharp. Her eyes flicked to Natalie, and her smile faded. What are you doing? Nothing, Natalie said, her voice steady. The broker stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. You think I didn't plan for this? Before anyone could react, she slammed her hand down on the device. Chapter 23, The Fallout. The price of victory is never small. The room plunged into chaos as alarms blared from the device. Natalie scrambled to disable it, her fingers flying across her tablet. It's encrypting everything, she shouted. I need more time. The broker smiled coldly. Time is the one thing you don't have. Marc grabbed her, forcing her back into the chair. You're not going anywhere. Anna hovered over Natalie, her heart pounding. Can you stop it? I'm trying. Natalie snapped. But this is next-level encryption. Whoever designed this was a genius. Then beat them, Anna said, her voice trembling but firm. Seconds stretched into agonizing minutes as Natalie worked. Finally, the alarm stopped, and the device powered down. Did you get it? Marc asked, his voice taut. Natalie exhaled, her face pale. I think so. But I can't guarantee everything's intact. Anna turned to the broker, her anger boiling over. It's over. The broker met her gaze, unflinching. Over? You've won the battle, Ms. Wallace. But the war is just beginning. Chapter 24, The Web Fracture's victory is never absolute. 4 hours, the safe house was a hive of activity as Natalie combed through the salvaged data from the broker's device. The team worked in tense silence, each of them acutely aware that their success, or failure, depended on what she could recover. Anna sat beside her, her eyes scanning the screen as lines of decrypted text appeared. Names, bank accounts, shipping manifests, pieces of a puzzle too big for any one person to comprehend. This is incredible, Natalie murmured, her fingers flying across the keyboard. It's all here. The entire operation, contacts, transactions, safe houses. If we move fast, we can cripple them. Anna's chest tightened with both relief and fear. Can we trust this information? Natalie nodded. The encryption was top tier, but I've cross-referenced the data. It's legitimate. We've got everything we need to dismantle the network. Marc leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. Then we take this to Interpol. Let them handle the fallout. Evelyn frowned, her expression uneasy. It's not that simple. If this gets out too soon, it could tip off the remaining operatives. They'll scatter, destroy evidence, and rebuild elsewhere. So, what do you suggest? Marc asked, his tone sharp. Evelyn hesitated. We need to coordinate a targeted strike. Hit multiple locations simultaneously. It's the only way to make sure they can't recover. Anna's gaze shifted to the broker, who sat restrained in the corner, her calm demeanor unnerving. Despite her position, she exuded confidence, as if she were still in control. You seem awfully quiet, Anna said, her voice cold. The broker smiled faintly. Just admiring the chaos. You've come so far, Anna. But tell me, how far are you willing to go? Will you risk everything for this? Your gallery, your life. Marc's life? Anna's stomach twisted, but she didn't let the fear show. You don't get to play those games anymore. We're in control now. The broker chuckled, leaning back in her chair. Control is an illusion, my dear. You've merely inherited my mess. Enjoy it while it lasts. Chapter 25, The Strike. One wrong move could cost everything. The plan came together quickly. Using the recovered data, the team identified key locations tied to the broker's network, a warehouse in Berlin, a bank in Zurich, and a private estate in Dubai. Each site held critical pieces of the operation, from financial records to physical assets. Interpol agreed to assist, providing teams to raid the locations simultaneously. Anna, Marc, and Evelyn would oversee the Berlin operation, while Natalie coordinated from the safe house. The warehouse in Berlin was a massive industrial complex, its exterior weathered and unassuming. But inside, it was a hub of illegal activity. As the team approached under the cover of darkness, Marc glanced at Anna. Are you ready for this? Anna nodded, gripping the handle of the bag she carried. It held the decrypted ledger, now a crucial piece of evidence. Let's finish this. The raid unfolded with precision. Interpol agents stormed the warehouse, their movements swift and coordinated. Anna and Marc stayed close to Evelyn as they moved through the maze of crates and machinery. Shots rang out as operatives loyal to the broker resisted, but the agents quickly subdued them. "This way," Evelyn said, leading them to a locked office. Inside, they found a treasure trove of documents and computers, all meticulously organized. Anna scanned the room, her breath catching when she spotted a painting propped against the wall. It was one of hers, an original piece that had been stolen months ago. "This is how far they've reached," she murmured, anger and determination flaring in her chest. Marc placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're stopping them. Right here, right now." As the agents secured the evidence, Anna spotted a file marked Directive Alpha. She opened it, her blood running cold as she read the contents. "Marc," she said, her voice trembling. This is a list of future targets." Marc glanced over her shoulder, his expression darkening. "They're already planning their next phase." Evelyn approached, her face pale as she read the file. "We need to get this to Interpol immediately. If we can stop these plans now, we might save hundreds of lives." But before they could act, a deafening explosion rocked the warehouse. Chapter 26. The final move. The most dangerous predator is the one with nothing to lose. The blast knocked Anna off her feet, her ears ringing as she struggled to make sense of the chaos around her. Smoke filled the air, and the shouts of agents were drowned out by the crackling of flames. "Anna." Marc's voice cut through the noise as he pulled her to her feet. "We need to move." Evelyn stumbled toward them, coughing as she waved the smoke away. "It's a diversion. They're trying to destroy the evidence." Anna clutched the Directive Alpha file, her mind racing. "We can't let them." Marc nodded. "Natalie, are you getting this?" "Yes," Natalie's voice crackled through the calms. "But you need to get out of there now. The fire's spreading too fast." Anna hesitated, torn between her need to preserve the evidence and the instinct to survive. "Go," Marc shouted, grabbing her arm. "We've got what we need." Reluctantly, Anna followed Marc and Evelyn through the smoke-filled corridors, the heat of the fire licking at their heels. They emerged into the cool night air just as fire engines arrived on the scene. As they watched the warehouse burn, Anna's chest tightened. They had struck a significant blow against the broker's network, but the cost had been high. "This isn't over," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Marc placed a hand on her shoulder. "No. But it's a start." Chapter 27. The Silent War. Victory is a shadow cast by sacrifice. The days following the Berlin raid were a blur of debriefings, press releases, and late-night strategy sessions. Interpol hailed the operation as a success, citing the capture of dozens of operatives and the recovery of critical evidence. Yet for Anna, the victory felt hollow. She sat alone in the safe house, staring at the Directive Alpha file on the table. The names and locations listed within were a chilling reminder of the network's reach. Even with the broker in custody, the operation wasn't dismantled, it was merely disrupted. Marc entered the room, his expression somber. "Interpol's pulling their teams back," he said, closing the door behind him. Anna looked up, her brow furrowing. "Why?" "We've barely scratched the surface. They think the raids have done enough damage to cripple the network," Marc explained. "But you and I both know that's not true." Anna's chest tightened. "So, they're just giving up?" "They're being cautious," Marc said, his tone bitter. "Too cautious." Silence fell between them, the weight of unfinished business pressing down like a heavy fog. Finally, Anna spoke. "What do we do now?" Marc hesitated, then sat across from her. "We keep going. With or without them." Anna's eyes widened. "Marc, we can't do this alone. We don't have the resources." "We have enough," Marc interrupted, his voice firm. "The ledger, the files, the intel we've gathered, it's all still actionable. And we've got something the broker doesn't expect: unpredictability. Anna stared at him, her mind racing. She had spent so much of her life building a world of certainty, of order. But this fight was chaos, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on the edge of disaster. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. Marc reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "We didn't come this far to stop now." Chapter 28, A Final Gambit: The greatest risks yield the greatest rewards, or the greatest losses. The broker sat in a stark interrogation room, her wrists cuffed to the table. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across her face, but she remained unflinching, her gaze cold and calculating. Evelyn stood on the other side of the glass, watching her through the two-way mirror. The former detective's face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. "She hasn't said a word," Natalie reported, standing beside Evelyn. "No demands, no deals. It's like she's waiting for something." "She is," Evelyn muttered. "What?" Evelyn turned to Natalie, her expression grim. "She's waiting for us to make a mistake." Inside the interrogation room, the broker shifted slightly, her eyes flicking to the corner where a surveillance camera was mounted. "Enjoying the show," she said, her voice smooth. No response came, but she smirked anyway. Meanwhile, Anna and Marc worked tirelessly to decipher the final pieces of the broker's network. Their efforts led them to a secure facility in Geneva, an unassuming office building that served as the nerve center for the operation. "This is it," Natalie said, pulling up satellite images of the building. "If we can take this place down, we'll sever their communications and cut off their financial pipelines." Marc studied the images, his jaw tight. "It'll be heavily guarded." "Of course it will," Anna said. "But we've faced worse." The plan was simple in theory but perilous in execution. Using forged credentials, Anna and Marc would infiltrate the building, plant a series of EMP devices to disable its systems, and extract any remaining intel. As they prepared for the mission, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that this was the point of no return. Chapter 29, The Heart of the Web: The closer you get to the core, the more dangerous the spider becomes. The Geneva facility was an unremarkable glass and steel structure, its exterior blending seamlessly with the surrounding business district. Inside, however, it was a fortress. Armed guards patrolled the halls, and biometric scanners secured every door. Anna and Marc entered through the lobby, their forged IDs granting them access to the upper levels. Their nerves were stretched taut, but they moved with practiced precision, their steps synchronized as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. "First target is the main server room," Natalie said through their comms. "2 floors up, West Wing. Watch for cameras." Marc nodded, his hand brushing against the concealed EMP device in his jacket. "On it." They reached the server room without incident, the soft hum of machinery filling the air. Marc set to work planting the EMP devices, his movements swift and efficient. "We've got 10 minutes before these things go off," he said, glancing at Anna. "Let's move." As they exited the server room, Anna's heart sank. A group of guards was heading their way, their weapons at the ready. "They know we're here," she whispered. Marc cursed under his breath. Time to improvise. The next moments were a blur of movement and sound. Marc engaged the guards, his combat training turning the narrow corridor into a battleground. Anna ducked behind a pillar, her hands trembling as she clutched the file containing their forged credentials. "Anna, go!" Marc shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. She hesitated, torn between staying and running, but the look in his eyes made the decision for her. "I'll find you," he said. "Just go." With a heavy heart, Anna turned and sprinted down the corridor, her breath ragged as alarms blared around her. Chapter 30, A Shattered Victory: Every triumph comes at a cost. Anna burst out of the building just as the EMP devices detonated. The explosion sent a shockwave through the facility, plunging it into darkness and sending a plume of smoke into the Geneva night sky. She stumbled onto the street, her lungs burning and her heart racing as alarms blared behind her. Her mind spun as she scanned the crowd for Marc. But he was nowhere to be seen. "Marc," she called into her comms, her voice trembling. "Marc, do you copy?" Static answered her. Panic clawed at her throat as she clutched the comm device. "Marc, answer me. Please." Finally, Natalie's voice broke through the static. "Anna, you need to move. Authorities are closing in, and the broker's people might still be in the area." I can't leave without him," Anna said, her voice cracking. "If you don't leave now, they'll catch you both." "You'll lose everything," Natalie urged. Anna's knees buckled as she fought back tears. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her heart refused to abandon Marc. A movement at the edge of her vision snapped her out of her daze. She turned to see a black SUV screeching to a halt across the street. Men in tactical gear spilled out, their faces obscured by masks. "They're coming," Natalie said sharply. "Anna, run." With a heavy heart, Anna forced herself to move. She darted into a nearby alley, her steps unsteady as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Behind her, she heard shouts and the sound of boots pounding against pavement. She didn't dare look back. Her path twisted and turned through the labyrinthine streets of Geneva. Shadows loomed around every corner, and the weight of her fear pressed down on her like a suffocating fog. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Finally, she reached the rendezvous point, a small, abandoned warehouse near the outskirts of the city. Natalie was waiting inside, her face pale and strained as she stood by a table covered in laptops and maps. "Where's Marc?" Natalie asked, her voice tight. Anna shook her head, collapsing into a chair. "He didn't make it out." Natalie's expression darkened. "We'll find him. I promise. But right now, we need to focus." Anna's hands trembled as she pulled the Directive Alpha file from her bag. She slapped it onto the table, her eyes blazing with determination. This is all we have. If Marc doesn't make it back, it's on us to finish this." Natalie nodded, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I'm already pulling satellite data to track movements from the facility. If the broker's people are trying to regroup, we'll know where they're headed." Anna stared at the file, her vision blurring as exhaustion and grief threatened to overwhelm her. "This isn't over. It can't be over." "It's not," Natalie said firmly. "We'll bring them down. For Marc. For everyone they've hurt." Hours later, as the first light of dawn crept through the broken windows of the warehouse, Anna's phone buzzed. She snatched it up, her heart leaping into her throat. The caller ID read, "Unknown." She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A low chuckle came through the line, sending a chill down her spine. "Good morning, Ms. Wallace. Did you sleep well?" Anna's blood turned to ice. "The broker." "Very good," the broker said, their tone dripping with mockery. "I see you've made quite the mess of things. Impressive, really. But you didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" Anna's grip on the phone tightened. "We have your files. Your network is collapsing. It's over." The broker laughed softly. "Oh, Anna. You're a clever woman, but you're still playing checkers in a game of chess. Do you really think I'd keep all my secrets in one place?" Anna's chest tightened. "What do you want?" "A simple proposition," the broker said smoothly. "You stop your little crusade, and I'll ensure you and your remaining friends get to live quiet, uneventful lives. Refuse, and, well, let's just say accidents happen." Anna's pulse pounded in her ears. She glanced at Natalie, who was watching her with wide eyes. "I'll never stop," Anna said through gritted teeth. "Not until you're finished." The broker sighed, as if disappointed. "So be it. But remember, Anna, every move you make, I'll be 2 steps ahead. Good luck." The line went dead. Anna lowered the phone, her hands trembling. Natalie stepped closer, her expression filled with concern. What did they say? Anna's jaw tightened. They're not done. And neither are we. Far across the city, in a dimly lit room, the brokers set down their phone and turned to face the figure standing in the shadows. She's resilient, the broker said, a hint of admiration in their voice. But resilience only lasts so long. The figure stepped into the light, revealing Marc, bruised, battered, but alive. His eyes burned with defiance as he stared at the broker. "You'll never break her," Marc said, his voice hoarse but steady. The broker's lips curved into a cold smile. "Perhaps not. But everyone has their limits. Let's see how far hers can be pushed." The end.